Good day, peace and paradigm shifting. It's Coach Twilight. Today I'm talking with you guys about why you probably shouldn't take your narcissistic ex back. Okay, so first, let me just give some context. The last videos I've done were you want to check out why a narcissist is just code for PIMP. You also want to go ahead and check out the spiritual breakdown of what a narcissist is so that you have the context to fully understand where I'm coming from. Now, according to the DSM-5, a narcissist falls under the category of a cluster B personality type. A cluster B personality type is generally categorized by someone who is overly emotional, overly dramatic, and has impulsive and erratic behavior. Some of the other criteria under the cluster B personality types are people with disorders including antisocial disorder, histrionic disorder, borderline personality disorder, narcissistic disorder, both covert and overt narcissism. So a lot of times as a catch-all phrase, we call people narcissists when in reality they could be depicting borderline personality disorder, or they could be depicting some antisocial behaviorism disorder. So because we're not professionals, it's probably a safer bet to call someone a cluster B personality because there's a lot of overlap between these various different diagnoses, okay? But one thing that we can say is that if you're dealing with someone who is grandiose, who is always thinking about power, dominance, and control, needs to constantly be reassured that they're the most special, has constant strong emotional reactions up into temper tantrums about not having what they want, see other people as objects, super entitled. You're looking at someone who has pathological narcissistic tendencies. So while they may not be a narcissist completely, they are depicting characteristics that are pathologically under the category of narcissism. We know that these particular characteristics are toxic. So with that being said, we want to talk about why it is probably not a good idea to take your narcissistic ex back. If your ex has depicted characteristics that are pathologically narcissist, you must understand the first thing is that their brains have been rewired. I tell my clients, put your hand over your head whenever they get to thinking about their narcissistic ex. Their brains have been rewired. So whatever traumatic experience they had as a child, it rewired their brains so much so to the point where the way that they process information, the conclusions that they draw, the way that they relate to people, and the way that they socially interact is generally under a lot of level of misappropriation and misaligned thinking. You see what I'm saying? A narcissist can particularly feel attacked just by way of being rejected. If you tell a narcissist no, they will take that as hurt. The reason being is because they have not matured past their adolescence in their emotional reasoning skills. So to see you suffering and hurting and in pain, that makes them feel relief because they too are suffering and hurting in pain, and they want other people to join them on their journey simply because, hey, if I'm hurting, you're hurting. Why should you not hurt if I'm hurting? That is really the immature adolescent type thinking. So there's more to it. You guys want to, like I said, review the prior videos, but their brains have been rewired. So their level of thinking is not like yours, okay? So you must accept that and change your perception. So when they come back to you, say, your narcissist ex comes to you and says, I've realized some things and I really want to make a change and I really want to be a better person and I really want to love you better. And you're thinking in your head, oh my God, I finally got through to him or her. They finally understand where I'm coming from and I can see that they're sincere and they want to make a change. Okay, so you now believe that they sincerely want to make a change, not considering that their brains have been rewired. This rewiring has happened prior to them meeting you, way before you came into their life, way before you even knew them. So their emotional reasoning skills are totally different from yours. So your thoughts is they're coming to me with a sincere proposal and charting out the changes that they're going to make. The first thing I would tell you to do is ask your narcissistic partner, what exact changes will you be making? Ask them to list 10 things that they found that were wrong and what are these steps that they're going to take to change those things. And listen very intently and carefully at the detail. If what they are telling you, if they cannot list the 10 things, or at least even 5 of those things, I can guarantee you that they haven't really given it a thought and they really don't give a shit about making a change. When you are dealing with a narcissist, their mentality is to have their way by any means necessary. So if that means manipulating people, if that means appearing to be the victim, if that means making other people uncomfortable, if that means bringing misery wherever they go, if they can get their objective accomplished of getting their way, then they're totally okay with whatever pathway it takes to get there. So if you have ended things with your narcissistic ex, they are probably experiencing what you call narcissistic injury, which really means a blow to their big fucking ego. Okay, so they've gotten a blow to their big fucking ego because they would prefer to be the one to discard and drop you if you no longer are working the way that they want you to work. Okay, so when you ask them to list what they're going to change, they're not going to be able to answer that question because they haven't given it any thought or detail. Okay. Now, if by some happenstance of stroke of lightning, luck, genius, that they actually do have a plan charted out, or they've seen this video and they know that, hey, you know what? People are going to start to burst our bubble a little bit and challenge us. So we have to step our game up. We still want our way by any means necessary. We're just going to have to go about it in a little bit more of a precise and methodical way. So they're looking at my video and they're going, okay, I'll be ready if my ex asks me this question. Now, I'm going to refer you back to the brain rewiring. Part of the spiritual transformation that happens to create these personality disorders in the first place is taking on what we call a false self. Now, this is ego on fleek. What this means is when these children or young adults had some sort of trauma or uncomfortable experience, particularly in the area of sexual abuse or abandonment or any type of abuse or trauma that occurred, they became so weakened, so in pain, so depressed to the point where they were crippled by the situation. The only thing that got them out of the situation was their false self. Now, what I'm going to take you to is a metaphysical theory. It is a spiritual contract that they made with an entity. The spiritual contract went just like this. Hey, youngin', I see you over there and you look like you sad, hurting, and depressed. And the youngin' goes, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I just want to end it all. Hey, I tell you what, do you never want to feel sad again? Yes. Do you never want to feel weak again? Yes. Yes. Do you never, ever, ever want to be put in a situation where you are on the losing end again? Yes. Yes. What do I have to do? And the entity said, sign this spiritual contract on a dotted line. I'm going to take over the wheel. I'm going to be in charge for you. I'm going to kick all the asses you need kicked. I'm going to make sure that no one ever puts you in a situation where you feel belittled, lonely, depressed, hurt, or weak again. Little person who doesn't have the adaptive techniques or the coping techniques goes and says, where do I sign? Signing frantically on the dotted line to this particular spiritual contract. And now the false self has them. Got the contract in blood. Absolutely. You have signed on a dotted line for this alternative person to take over you and for you to never feel pain again. When they take on this false self, this thing initially probably gets them through some very difficult times as a child. They help them to cope with what's going on with them and the trauma and the abuse that they are experiencing. Okay? So because they've helped them cope with what's going on with them, the trauma and the abuse, they keep this false self around. So much so too, the false self begins to take over for the real self. The real self not only begins to take a back seat, but hell, the real self digs a grave for itself and just goes 6 feet under and says, false self, you handle it all. Now, the way that the narcissist, remember, brain rewired now, the way that the narcissist may view this situation is they've gained more with this false self and this false ego than they've lost. You see what I'm saying? They may have, destroyed some lives. They may have hurt some family members. They may have hurt themselves. They may have hurt their own children. It matters not, because they have gained more in the end. And what happens is, because they created this false self during adolescence or pre-adolescence, they are now more prone to immature thinking, pre-adolescent thinking, childish reasoning. That's why you will notice that a narcissist will pick a fight with you. They will provoke you. They will antagonize you. They will pull any negativity out of you and feel satisfied when the ugly comes out of you, when they've seen you snap, when they've seen you go crazy. And yes, I have had many experiences with a narcissist. And they feel a certain sense of satisfaction, like a mischievous child, like Dennis the Menace. Okay? Now, one other thing you want to note is that if you are used to being like the black sheep in the family or the empathic one in the family, you're used to being lonely up here in your head. You may have social skills, you may have people around you, but you don't have people who you can really share with. You maybe have not found your kindred spirits or your soul family. In addition to that, you may still be longing for a connection with your real family that you have not yet achieved. So this feeling of this loneliness in your head, when you meet a narcissist is mirroring back to you everything that you are giving them, because they are artificial versions of themselves. Remember, you've never met the narcissist. The real person took a back seat in their adolescence. The real person is in the sunken place. You don't know the real person. You only know the false person. So if at any point you're considering getting back with them, realize that you are only speaking to their representative. You don't know the real person that they are. Most of the time, by the time you meet the narcissist, you're in adulthood. So what that narcissist is showing you is all the remnants of what the false self has been able to do for them. So let me explain it to you a little bit more deeply. Again, they have gotten more gains than they have gotten losses by taking on this spiritual contract with this false self, this parasitic energy that is draining from them and looks to move like locusts and drain from other people. Okay? So they have gotten probably a decent job or two, or a house, or finished school, and so on and so forth, with this false ego that they keep projecting out into the world. So why on earth would they take the things that they have at least gotten and achieved something with and trade it to get to their vulnerable, weak, real self, which has proven to have gotten them nothing in this world? They only know the benefits of living through the false self. So even if you're considering getting back with them, what you must understand is that you are, in essence, a fool for the field. There's a song by a young lady named Billy Black. I really like it. Fool for the field. And you're a fool for the field that they made you feel. If you are, you say, like I said, a loner, a spiritualist, a black sheep, they gave you that feeling of belonging. Maybe they gave you that feeling of inclusion. Maybe they gave you that feeling of someone that truly cares and understands. But the truth is, the entire time, they were simply mirroring you. When they were love bombing you, they were doing everything to get your guard down to see if you'd be susceptible to manipulation. None of their efforts and energy are based on any sincere, genuine interest, because they don't see people as people. They know you're a person, but they see people as objects to be used so that they never, ever, ever have to feel a certain level of hurt. They never, ever, ever have to feel penetrated. They never, ever, ever have to feel in that vulnerable state that they were in when they signed the spiritual contract with the false self. So even if the false self is going around destroying and fucking up shit in their lives, the false self has done more for them in their mind than the real self would ever, ever do. So when you are considering getting back with your ex, if they can't express to you and list to you the exact things that they intend to do to make certain changes and give you a clear-cut pathway in which these changes will occur, which most of them won't be able to do, recognize that you're not even talking to a real person. You're talking to a hologram. You're talking to their representative. You don't even know the real them. You never met the real them. So the only thing that you are vibing off of is the feelings that they made you feel. So when you are considering what's happening when you're dealing with a narcissist, is it's being mirrored back to you, the deeper feelings that have been unfulfilled in your life. And if you can manifest an artificial version of that, you can surely manifest an authentic version of what you really want in your life. All I think that it would take is for you to do the true inner work to know where those deficiencies lies with you. When it comes to an empath and a spiritualist and a narcissist, these generally are two traumatized children, okay, who have eventually took different pathways on how to handle their traumatization. So an empath has took the pathway of healing themselves, getting in tune with their real self, probably still got some triggers, still not perfect, but uses their experience to empower people. A narcissist is a warmongering soul, okay? A succubus. It has took the traumatic experiences, succumbed to their weaknesses, and decided that the world was an awful, unsafe place, and everybody is here to hurt them, abuse them, or use them, and they're going to get people before people get them. Two different pathways. So this has been Twilight saying, if you're considering taking back your narcissistic ex, here is why I recommend that you probably should.
And all the time we make believe, but you know it's not